Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Nev and this is episode 452. In this week's show, one Ryanair flight gets tired of its nosed gear. Aircraft vegetables? No, but the Dreamliner has leaks, and one US airport converts to a boating lake. In the military, it's all about the F-35, and is it time to retire the A-10s? Also in this week's show, we revealed the winner of the book prize from last week, and also the caption, "This goes Australian," or does it? Looking forward to that one, actually. Let's talk about that. Joining me this week is Carlos in the Master Suite studio.
Oh, hello, Nev. Hello, Nev. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, actually. Yeah, very good, very good. Been a good week. Lots of driving this week. Not much, well, no flying at all, but yes, plenty of driving. And although the roads have been beautifully quiet for the most part because it's been the kids' holidays, but they're all back next week, so it'll all change, no doubt. But pretty hectic week at work, that's for sure. No shortage of good aircraft stories this week as well, or aviation generally, actually. It's been quite a good week for.
It has been. But yeah. Nev, it must be strange because you've not had any flying now for what must be 2 weeks now.
You can imagine that I've got serious withdrawal symptoms, and in fact, you've probably got a caption for this. I think, Carlos.
Yes.
This time of the year, April the 8th. That's when those Avios tier points reset.
What you mean? These ones, Nev?
Yes. And it goes from, well, you need 1,500 to retain gold, and I ended up with about 2,500 last year. But then on April the 8th, it resets to 0, and you've got to do it all again. I'm not flying until the 27th of April, which is a flight to Edinburgh. And I'm going to have to go some this year to retain the gold for next year. So I've retained it for the next 12 months, but it's the following 12 months you've got to do it for. So, yeah, I shall be putting my foot hard down.
Isn't there a thing with BA, Nev, where when you get to a certain point, you can't ever lose your
yes,
tier points?
It's called Gold for Life, and you get that when you get to 35,000 tier points, and even with all the flying I do, I'm at 11,000, so I don't think I'll ever get there. Actually.
Well, seriously, even if you continue with the amount of flying that you've done recently,
how much longer I've got to work for, let's say. You know, I'm not going to be doing that much business flying later on, so yeah, it's going to be interesting. Anyway, I'm not complaining too much.
You're not complaining.
Yeah.
So welcome everyone who's joined us this evening for the show. Going to have a quick look in the chat room to see who's there. Richard Adams was the first one in there. Hello to you, Richard. We've got Neville Bounds, obviously keeping an eye on things with the Blue Spanner of Doom. Lee Davies, unfortunately, he's had to dip out because he's still not feeling very well, Nev. I'm worried about Lee. Mazouz is also in there. Hello to you, Mazouz. Good to see you in there. Nick Codling's in there as well, one of our associate producers of the show. Welcome to you. We've got Captain Ridiculous Wits is also in there. Greetings to you. Hobby Time, hello to you. Good to see you in there. UH Blackhawk as well. He's on a flight that's boarding, so only here for a short period. Passenger this time he's not working, so he's going to hopefully he'll connect to the Wi-Fi there. He'll be able to.
I wonder if they fixed his APU. Was it his APU? No, it was the weather radar, wasn't it, from last week that wasn't working? So he was grounded. So we weren't able to meet up.
Well, hopefully he'll connect to the Wi-Fi. He'll be able to watch us on the plane. Bill's in there. Hello to you, Bill. Good to see you in there as well. John Jester, our guest from a few weeks back. Hello, John. Good to see you in there as well. Richard Adams. Aaron P. Hello to you as well. Good to see you in there. Masha. Lovely to see you in there, Masha, as well. Hope you've had the good weather we've had here today. It's been a bit windy, but it's been lovely and sunny, Nev. It's been quite nice here today.
Yes.
And also Sturman. Hello to you, Sturman. Good to see you in there. Sturman, I'll tell you, Nev, he's getting married this year in August. Did I tell you?
Oh, my word.
Yeah, he's getting married.
Does he need a a DJ for his wedding?
Well, he may have already got one, all being well. But yes, hello to you. Captain Cruz, good to see you in there. Mark Priestley, he's just made it. He's just dipped in there. Hello to you, Mark. Good to see you. And don't forget, if you're listening to us as an audio show, don't forget to maybe come over and see us on YouTube on a Friday night at 7 o'clock, where we'll be here broadcasting live to you, over on YouTube. You can join in the chat room fun. And don't forget, when you're on YouTube, search for us, Plain Talking UK. Hit the subscribe button, not literally, but just give it a little click, and the bell icon, which is next door, to be notified when we are live and broadcasting, well, hopefully, as we are now. So we've got loads to get through on the show this evening, and loads of news stories to get through as well. So Nev, are you ready to do some news?
Yes, let's do some commercial news.
Yes.
The captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts.
You know what, sometimes, Nev, OneNote can be an absolute pain, can't it?
Yes.
You know, when you go to look at OneNote and everything's disappeared.
Oh, I know. Would you like me to read it instead?
No, that's fine. I managed to quickly close it and open it up again. So we're here. So first story this week, and we're going over to Amsterdam in Schiphol for this one. And the headline is, it's from the edition.cnn, it's Amsterdam Schiphol Airport proposes a ban on private jets. So high flyers hoping to hop into the Netherlands on a private jet might be forced to rethink their travel plans, as Amsterdam Schiphol Airport is proposing a private jet ban. The notoriously busy airport has suggested a series of measures to reduce its air traffic and create a quieter and cleaner and better system, according to a Schiphol Airport statement. Under new proposals, the airport hopes it will come into effect no later than 2025-26, and private jets will no longer be welcome at Schiphol, and there will also be no aircraft landing between midnight and 5 a.m. local time, or taking off between midnight and 6 a.m. local time. Also, plans for a new runway have also been scrapped. Schiphol says it's targeting private jets because they cause a disproportionate amount of noise, nuisance and CO2 emissions per passenger, and private jets produce up to 14 times more planet-warming pollution than the commercial aircraft and 50 times more than trains, according to European Clean Transport Organisation Transport and Environment. When these small, swanky aircraft depart from Schiphol, 30 to 50% of them are heading to vacation spots like Ibiza, Spain, Cannes in France, or Innsbruck in Austria, according to Schiphol. The airport argues that there are plenty of aircraft flying from Amsterdam to these destinations, and suggests that private passengers should go commercial instead. Sufficient scheduled services are available to the most popular destinations flown by private jets, says the Schiphol Airport in a statement, adding that small police and ambulance aircraft will be permitted to take off and land as they do currently under the new system. And the story does go on there, but I can't see them doing this. It's not going to stop private jets from coming into Schiphol. It's worth a fortune.
The thing is that they're complaining about the fact of noise from private jets. Well, most of them are quite modern, and they're not that noisy at all, I don't think. Certainly when I've been close by to RAF Northolt, near where I live, they're not particularly noisy. I think the problem is that I would imagine that the amount of all the scheduled services obviously need all the capacity of the airport that they've got, but you would have thought with 6 runways, I think it's 6 at Schiphol, there'll be plenty of options for other bits of traffic. But I think the problem is that they are the rate of growth at Schiphol has been tremendous over the last 5 years at least. And I think the problem is, as John Jester says in the chat room, Schiphol doesn't seem to understand that they also bring in a disproportionately larger amount of economic benefit, and that's very true. I was just asking Masha in the chat room, actually, whether they might use the Lelystad airport for private jets, one that we had the meet-up at. Not that far from the main airport. So, it's going to be an ongoing thing, isn't it? But, I think Amsterdam, on the one hand, you might say, Schiphol have done a lot for the economic benefits of the country, but also the runway layouts that they've got. I think they do try their very best to make it as quiet and as reasonable as they can. But it's... a subject which we'll be talking about in 10 years' time and 20 years' time, won't it?
Do you know what, Nev? I've never flown from Schiphol or flown into Schiphol. No, I haven't.
Oh.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it's one of those airports that we talk about a lot on the show, and it's it's one of the busiest airports I'd imagine in Europe. I'd imagine. I think so anyway. But I've never flown into or out of Schiphol.
Well, when they... I've been flying in and out of there a lot, but when they first opened the newest runway, which is, I think, 18 right, I think I'm right in saying, which is the Polderbahn approach and runway, about sort of a mile or so before we landed, I thought, I'm glad we're landing soon, because I would quite like to use the toilet. And we landed, and we taxied, 25 minutes later, and I'm not joking, it was between 20 and 25 minutes, we arrived on the stand. I was breaking my neck by this point, as you can imagine, being a gentleman of a certain age. So the taxiing time from that far runway to the main gates is substantial. And, I mean, these guys and girls are going at it, what feels like, I don't know, 35 knots, perhaps, something like that, and it still takes them 20 minutes to get there. So, quite a slog.
A slog.
But of course, it does have quite a lot of options for when there's crosswinds and that kind of thing. But I have been into Schiphol a number of times where we've had to hold as well because of congestion of traffic. Quite a big cargo hub, of course, as well. Lots of cargo operations in and out.
Yeah, I know John has flown in there quite a number of times, I think. Our listener, John Jester, isn't he? So,
yes.
Now, Nev, you've got the next story, and normally this would be a Matt story because it's a Ryanair story, but as you'll be hopefully flying this particular airline soon, I've got this is a good story for you.
Now I've seen this story, I may choose not to fly, because it's clearly an issue. It's on lbc.co.uk. And this is the actual headline from the website. This is the terrifying moment. Sparks flew from a Ryanair plane as it landed at Dublin Airport over the weekend. Wow. An emergency was declared at the airport after Ryanair flight FR5542 suffered a problem with its nose wheel. Dublin Airport Fire Service rushed to the airstrip, where the plane landed with sparks flying off from the front. Passengers and cabin crew staff were able to disembark the flight, which was arriving from Liverpool in the usual fashion after the incident was stood down. A spokesman for the operator of Dublin Airport, the DAA, said on Sunday a full emergency was declared at Dublin Airport this afternoon following the arrival of Ryanair flight FR5542 from
Video
Liverpool
even,
Airport.
but we've got the
Passengers
sparks.
disembarked the
It was
aircraft
going down the
normally.
runway on rims
Air traffic flows into Dublin Airport were restricted
some
during the
major
incident.
delays, I would suspect, here.
Yes.
In and out of Dublin
that's what happened,
International.
basically. No one was injured during the landing, although one passenger was
You've also
treated
got
for
multiple,
shock.
as you would expect,
Arrivals in Dublin
multiple
Airport were initially suspended during the
fire
incident with
service
the
vehicles
south runway closed for
on
the evening.
their
There were
way
no initial
to
reports of any
restriction
injuries,
Boeing
apart from the one
737.
passenger we
I
mentioned
heard
that
the
was
bang.
treated
I
for
actually
shock.
thought it might have been
Ryanair
Daniel driving
spokesman
past.
said,
I turned round and
the
all
flight
I
from
could see
Liverpool
was
to
it
Dublin
nose
experienced a
down
minor
into the
technical
minute.
issue with its nose
But
gear upon landing.
we do have
Passengers
some
and
fairly
crew disembarked
significant
normally
issues
and the
here at
aircraft
Dublin
will shortly
International this
return back
evening.
to the hangar for further inspections by Ryanair engineers. Well, yes, a slight non-story, perhaps. I don't know.
Actually, I'll pop the picture up, Nev, of
It
the
wasn't quite as
the gear.
spectacular as that Jet 2 A320.
There we go.
No, sorry, sorry, it was not the Jet 2, was it? It was the Jet Blue A320 that had its nose wheel cocked at 90 degrees.
It was Jet 2. Or Jet Blue, yeah. Sorry, Jet Blue. Yeah.
Yes. And, well, that's quick trip to... quick trip.
ATS.
Yes, isn't it?
I like the fact that it's ground down, Nev, to where the gear, the nose gear lights are.
Yes.
There's quite a bit of gear beneath where those lights are, which seems to have sort of, well, it's not there anymore.
No, but of course the other thing I suppose you can think about as well, it's just as well that it's the main gear that had braked rather than the nose gear, because if the nose gear was braked as well, that would be even more of a mess, I would imagine, if they had a nose gear failure. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, considering the number of sectors that Ryanair operate, they hardly ever have an incident of any sort, do they? So yeah, I'm glad that everybody was okay. But I think there was a over dramatisation of the whole thing, perhaps.
No, Nev, you got the next story as well, because it's a BA story, and
Yes,
it's actually good. I saw, do you know, the minute I saw this, I actually forwarded this on to our very good friend Stuart O'Neill, because obviously he's in the process of sort of going out and trying to apply to various airlines, and I think this might benefit him.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? It's on airwaysmag.com. It says that British Airways is searching for direct entry Airbus A320 pilots for its London Heathrow base. The carrier has around 3,600 pilots in total, but they want to expand their staff, mostly due to the expanded summer schedule. According to the company's LinkedIn job offer, they already have 163 applications. So if you're interested in joining BA or BA Euroflyer, the requirements are as follows. You must hold a UK Part FCL licence, or you have an initiated licence transfer with the CAA. You need at least 500 hours or 100 sectors on an aircraft type that satisfies the zero flight time training and have flown this type in the last 12 months to join BA Euroflyer. You need at least 500 hours or 100 sectors on the A320 or 1,500 hours on an aircraft type that satisfies the zero flight time training and have flown this type in the last 12 months if you want to join the mainline British Airways. And you can apply directly on the BA's website as well. If you remember that BA Euroflyer is the company's newest subsidiary, founded in 2021. The airline started its operations in March 2022, and they operate 7 Airbus A320-200s and 5 A321-200s. And the average age of their fleet is nearly 19 years. And if you look at the job description, taken from the BA jobs page, it says this is a key time to be joining the British Airways family as we build a better BA. We take huge pride in our past, but we're looking to the future as an airline that loves embracing the best of modern Britain. Our country's creativity, diversity, style, wit and warmth are the same special qualities that make us who we are. If you're made of the same qualities as us, you could soon be part of the next chapter of our story. Together as one team, we're connecting Britain with the world and the world to Britain like no one else. Oh. Honestly, who writes this?
Who does write this?
Honestly, it's just... Anyway, I'm sure it's very effective, but I think if you've got those qualifications, you know, you're not going to be too worried about that last paragraph, are you?
I wonder how many potential EasyJet pilots might want to move to BA. I wonder what the difference in pay is, Nev, between EasyJet and BA, because obviously they both operate the 320s and the 321s and stuff on the heavy European sectors. So I wonder what the difference is. We'll have to look that up. Difference in pay.
It's an internet question, isn't it? Perhaps.
I would just assume that BA pay the most, but I don't know. Yeah,
and I mean, I think the thing is, well, with the summer schedule coming up, remember what happened last time with the summer schedule? They couldn't get people, they laid so many people off, both pilots and cabin crew and other areas as well. They couldn't get them back in time for the summer schedule when it came to it. So let's hope we can have a slightly more normal situation during the summer.
John Jester in the chat room, Nev, says BA Euroflyer sounds like a way to keep salaries down.
You might be right.
So, moving to the next story, and it's good news for those of you who fly from Gatwick regularly. Oh, I can't remember the last time I flew from Gatwick, Nev. This is from Delta.com, and Delta returns to Gatwick to fly to New York-JFK. So there will be more USA to explore non-stop from London Gatwick as Delta Airlines starts a daily non-stop flight between London Gatwick and JFK. Delta's returning to Gatwick after 15 years' absence, and the return of the airline's service coincides with its 45-year or 45th anniversary of serving the UK and US market. Delta started flying to the UK 45 years ago this month at Gatwick, and so it's fitting that they are restarting the operations from Gatwick to the United States, said Nicholas Ferry, Delta's Vice President of Europe, Middle East, Africa and India. On board, customers will discover an elevated service and special touches to make their journey memorable. With daily flights, customers will enjoy convenient connections to destinations across North America via Delta's New York JFK hub, exciting cities including New Orleans, Nashville, Miami are waiting to be discovered, while customers can connect to California's breathtaking beaches in LA and San Diego and world-class wine regions near San Francisco. Nev's already booking his ticket now. Outdoor enthusiasts enjoy one-stop services to Salt Lake City and Seattle, from where some of America's most famous national parks are within easy reach of biking and rafting. So Stuart Wingate, the CEO at Gatwick Airport, said that we are thrilled to welcome Delta Airlines back to Gatwick. It means that we will expand furthermore our connectivity to the US. This trust from such a network carrier such as Delta underlines the competitiveness and the operational capabilities at Gatwick. Delta is a huge name in the transatlantic market, and being able to offer passengers across London and the South East the opportunity to travel with them between Gatwick and New York City is fantastic, he said, providing not only wider choice but further competition. It also demonstrates the strong pull of Gatwick as an airport for big name long haulers. So, and it's not only travellers flying from London Gatwick who will benefit non-stop flights to the United States. Delta's schedule is good news for the BA, or for the British economy, offering more opportunities for American tourists to visit popular destinations such as London, Brighton and Cambridge, just down the road from me. There's an upgraded travel experience waiting for the customers when flying from London. Recently refurbished 767-300 aircraft featuring Delta's cabin experiences to suit the customer's needs, from the luxury of a fully lie-flat seat in Delta One to Delta Comfort Plus and also main cabin. And customers will also find an elevated experience on board the aircraft. Customers in every cabin enjoy seatback screens featuring hours of complimentary premium entertainment via Delta Studio. In-seat power as well is available, plus high-speed Wi-Fi, which you can purchase, and with free Wi-Fi apparently coming by the end of 2024. And also free mobile messaging via iMessage. That must be one of those Apple things, Nev. WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. All flights between the UK and the US will be operated in cooperation with Delta's joint venture partners Virgin Atlantic, Air France and KLM. Honestly, Nev, I literally sitting here thinking, when was the last time I flew to or flew from Gatwick? And I just can't remember.
Yes, I've done a couple of flights to the Algarve from Gatwick with the BA fellas. Also took an Aurigny ATR 42 to Guernsey a few years ago. Looking at the Delta fleet, though, those 767-300 ERs, if that's what they are, all of them are over 20. Well, the average age of them is 27 years, which is absolutely fine. So I do hope the interior has been refurbished nicely, like they're saying it has. Otherwise, it might be a bit, well, compared to some of the more modern machines, a bit more of a trying experience. Having said that, I do like the 767. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, we were lucky to fly. Me and Gemma flew back from. I think it was from when we flew back from. It was Vegas, yeah. When we flew back from Vegas, it was with on a Delta 7. Yeah, was it Vegas on the 76? No, I can't remember now. Where we flew back, it was from the States. We flew back on Delta, and it was the 767-400.
Yes,
which was the big version, the large version of the 76. But that was quite a dated cabin. I remember that back in the day. But yeah, it'd be good to see these guys back at Gatwick. And obviously, I don't think Gatwick is ever going to be quite Heathrow, is it, Nev? But
no, although I must say the commutability, if that's even a word, into London using the Gatwick Express into Victoria Station, I think it is pretty reasonable. So I think it depends on where in London you want to end up, really, and if train is a thing. Having said that with Gatwick, I dropped one of my colleagues off to Gatwick this week, and I had forgotten that they charge £5 for the privilege of doing so, and of course they then you have to do it online after you've got home.
What's that? That's up for 2 hours parking, Nev?
No, that was for a minute and a half drop off.
Oh, £5 for a minute and a half. That's
very generous and very good value, isn't it? Yeah.
Anyway, Nev. Now, we all know that I like hanging various pieces of aircraft off my wall at home, and I have, when I'm back in the studio next week, I have now finally got my blade on the wall. It's looking lovely. Good. But Nev, you've got a story next, and if these guys at FedEx want to donate this to me, another one, then please, let me know.
Well, it's a great story, isn't it? It's on the AlaskaNewsSource.com. The headline says, Big Lake resident prepares to transport cargo plane via Glen Highway with plans to renovate into an Airbnb. Boeing 727 cargo jet will be making an overnight commute out to the Matanuska Susitna borough sometime in the coming days. Sorry for my poor pronunciation there. The aircraft, which has been donated by FedEx to the University of Alaska's Aviation Technology Division, made headlines for its 2013 landing at Merrill Field in downtown Anchorage. John Kotwicki, the owner of Fly 8MA Training in Big Lake, purchased the airline as part of a housing project for students who attend the training facility. The 727 will join a DC-6 and a DC-9 already parked at his property and has big plans in store for it. That is our flight school that we are building there off of Hawk Lake and Big Lake, he says. The planes will serve as student housing for students, obviously, who are coming to do flight training with us from afar, as well as an Airbnb. But before he can begin work transforming the aircraft into a livable space, he needs to truck it out to the valley. The flight instructor had been working with a small crew of people removing the wings, nose and tail of the aircraft in preparation for the big move. The hope is to have everything ready for transport on Wednesday evening, but that is tentative. According to Kotwicki, the entire journey is expected to take around 6 hours, with speeds averaging around 10 to 15 miles per hour. The intent is to depart Anchorage Airfield at 10 p.m. He hopes to have the housing and Airbnb facilities up and running by next year, 2024. My goodness. Well, I wish him the best of luck, that's all I can say. Quite a project, isn't it?
It is quite a project, and that is it's one of those aircraft that I flew on many years ago to Tunisia, actually, funnily enough, on a 7.2, and I think it done well for Boeing. I think obviously it wasn't as popular as the 737, but I think the 727 had its place, I think, in the sort of grand scheme of aviation, really.
Yeah, I've never been on a 727 ever, nor have I been on a Lockheed TriStar.
Oh, Nev!
So, I know. Oh. It's appalling, isn't it? So, yes, a great project. I wish him well with it. Be interesting to see what that looks like next year.
Yeah, I quite often imagine if I had a big enough garden, Nev, whether I would grow the set to get something like that in the back garden. Because people do see it. I've seen these people online. They've brought massive Wessex helicopters and they've converted them into sheds. And there's a guy in Shropshire. He's got an A320, quite a large section of an A320 fuselage, all done out inside, and he has it as a man cave. Honestly, it's stunning.
You're saying it as if it's not a normal thing to do. It sounds
It's a normal thing to do. If I had the space, I would do it. Trust me, I'd definitely do it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, next story comes to us from apnews.com, and FAA says leaky faucets. Faucets? It's one of those US sayings again, isn't it? A safety problem on Boeing 787s. Boeing has several production problems with the 787 over the years, as we all know. But you can add leaky lavatory faucets to the list. Or should we just say sinks? We're a UK podcast, honestly. Federal regulators say it's a safety issue because the water can get into electronic equipment bays and damage critical parts. The Federal Aviation Administration proposed on Friday to order repetitive inspections, and if leaks are found, to replace the sink parts. And move comes after reports of water from lavatories getting under the cabin floor and into electronic equipment bays. Is it faucet? Is that how you pronounce that word, Nev? I never know. Faucet? It's a sink.
Yes. That's the word, isn't it?
Yeah. The FAA said the leaks could damage critical equipment and lead to a loss of continued safe flight and landing. They said the agency said the one airline found wet carpet in the cockpit of an aircraft, and when inspected, its entire fleet of 787s found multiple aircraft with leaking sinks. The FAA did not identify the airline, and Boeing advised airlines back in November about the issue, which has been traced to an O-ring. It's always an O-ring seal. And whenever anything goes wrong, it's an O-ring seal, and described as a slow leak, around 8 ounces of water per hour. However, Boeing said the issue was limited to certain 787s, while the FAA order would cover all of them. The FAA described the extra inspections as a temporary measure, while the manufacturer redesigns the sink modules. A Boeing spokesman said the redesign is complete and the company is working with its supplier and customers to determine when the aircraft can be retrofitted with the new parts. Japanese aircraft parts maker Jamco says on its website its exclusive producer of the lavatories for all two-aisle Boeing jets such as the 787s, and the company did not immediately respond to the requests for comments. There'll be a 45-day period for comments before the FAA proposal can become a final order, and the inspections would apply to 140 aircraft in US fleets. Dreamliner deliveries have been halted for several stretches during the past 2 years because of FAA concerns over production flaws, although deliveries recently resumed since the stoppage. So, Nev, leaky sinks. You can't have a leaky sink, can you?
Well, yeah, I think as Micah said actually in the chat room, it's the valve stems and all the things associated with the sink by the sounds of things. The trouble is with all this, this gives them more production delays, doesn't it? I mean, they've already had so many delays with this aircraft, and now that the pandemic is hopefully at the back end of it now, this is the time to start getting the aircraft, back in the skies and back online. So, it's more of a problem, isn't it?
I'm surprised, Nev. I watched a documentary series on one of the digital Freeview channels, not recently, and it was the A350. They were doing the interior fits on an A350, and I always remember the guy there, and they had the floor of the aircraft because obviously there's nothing inside the aircraft. They were doing the panelling and stuff on the outside, on the inside window areas, and then on the floor there was a guy laying a membrane, like a very sort of thin membrane of non-permeable plastic kind of thing to stop water getting through underneath where the toilet areas and any wet areas are. So I'm surprised that water can kind of get into anything when it's got that seal underneath the flooring where the toilets and the areas are that have the water. Yes,
of course, water seems to get through anything, doesn't it, really? it doesn't matter what sort of seal you use on almost anything, whether it's a car or aircraft in some cases like this one. There's always a way through for it, isn't there? And of course, you don't know it's happening until it's too late and there's a large amount of water has been ingested.
So, Nev, next story for you. We're going over to China for this one.
Yes, it's on CBS News. Quite a long read, this one, but it's quite interesting. So it's worth listening to it, I think. It's all about how China has developed its first large domestic airliner to take on Boeing and Airbus. As China moves close to mass production of its large passenger jet, details are emerging that reveal how a state-owned aircraft manufacturer was able to build a plane that looked remarkably similar to a Boeing 737. It really looks like a knockoff, said Matt Pottinger, former Deputy National Security Advisor during the Trump administration, describing the Chinese-built C919. Together, the duopoly that is Airbus and Boeing have dominated the skies for decades, cornering the planes manufacturing market globally. Whilst these Western-based companies have maintained their hold on the industry, China, which has never been able to manufacture anything like a 737, is seeking to change that. And to do so, US national security experts point to a combination of economic pressure and espionage. Critics argue that China's C919, the aircraft made by the state-owned company Comac, is not only a threat to the US economy and an effort to elbow Boeing out of the huge market in China, but also a chance for the Chinese military to benefit from access to American-made technology. The C919 is so important to the Chinese Communist Party, it's been called a source of national pride. The development of a low-cost domestic airliner has been a top strategic goal for over a decade, and it could position China to eventually dominate one of the world's largest markets for jets. That possibility could end up costing the US economy up to $1.5 trillion over the next 20 years. John Ostrower, editor of the Air Current, which is a news site that covers the aviation industry, told CBS News that aerospace is part of the game of nations and that China has been working towards mastery of the field and eliminating competition. It ultimately represents self-reliance, modernity, and the desire to engage with the world, he said. He also adds, over the next 20 years, you're talking about a market in China of about 8,000 aircraft. And if China wants a chunk of that, that fundamentally means fewer aircraft for Boeing and Airbus to deliver. In 2015, China unveiled the C919 prototype to much fanfare, literally rolling out the red carpet. However, after lengthy delays, the first completed C919 was finally delivered to China Eastern Airlines 4 months ago. C919 looks similar to its competition, the Airbus A320 and the Boeing 737. The familiar look is by design, according to current and former national security officials like Pottinger. China has a lot of different varieties of ways of relieving people of their intellectual property, he says. 60% of the plane's components are as the result of deals with America's top aerospace companies like Collins Aerospace, GE Aviation and Honeywell. Entering into these joint ventures with China's industry is the steep price paid by American companies for admission into the nation's massive market. If you want to sell stuff to 1.3 billion people in China, you're going to have to give us the blueprints for your goods, or you're going to have to go into a joint venture with us where you're going to train our engineers, is how Pottinger explained China's strategy. That is what we call forced technology transfer. Well,
I have to say, Nev, right, looking at the picture which I've got in front of me on the screen here, I'll pop up on the screen again. I don't know if you agree with me here, but I think front end Dreamliner, back end 320.
Yes. Or front end Embryo, perhaps.
Yeah.
Am I missing something here? I don't really fully see the problem here. You know, if there's been some sort of breach or espionage, then people, you know, need to deal with that. But at the end of the day, you know, China is a manufacturing country in its own right, and it will make the aircraft that it wants to make.
And also, Nev, it's good to have competition. You know, we've got two main players in the aviation world, Boeing and Airbus. You know, we need competition and from other manufacturers. You know, look, God, remember back in the 70s and 80s, Nev, you know, there was Boeing and Airbus, but there was other manufacturers as well producing aircraft, such as Lockheed, McDonnell Douglas, obviously with the DC-10. There was all manner of different, aircraft and stuff. So, I don't know.
Yes, interesting. But I'm not as exercised about it as some other people might be. I must say, I see less of a problem with that.
So, moving on to story 8 in the mix this week, and comes to us from dailymail.co.uk. This is quite an interesting video I watched on for this one, Nev. This was Boeing aircraft clips tree as it takes off and was filmed passing a mere feet above electrical wires, with pilots slammed for attempting flight despite knowing the aircraft was overweight. And actually, we ran a story on this in this same airline not a few years back, Nev. Yeah. I think it was a 727 at the time. A cargo aircraft that struck the top of a tree at the end of a runway as it took off was 606 pounds, 274 kilograms, overweight, according to an investigation to the incident. On February the 3rd, 2022, Aerosukra Boeing 737-200 with a crew of 5 took off from Porto Carreno Airport in Colombia, a dangerously low altitude, and as it became airborne, the landing gear retracted, clipped the top of a 46 feet high tree past the end of the runway, and footage from a doorbell cam installed in a house beyond the runway showed the aircraft passing low overhead, missing electrical cables by mere feet, causing significant movement in the vegetation below. I'm going to pop the picture up on the screen for those of you watching in the world of YouTube. There we go. The crew returned to the airport around 20 minutes after departure after the left-hand engine lost power. A subsequent inspection found the engine had ingested I'm not surprised. Ingested someone's allotment, greenery. Vegetation was discovered embedded in parts of the left wing as well. On April the 10th this year, Colombia's Aeronautica Civil released their final report, and the report concludes the problem causes of the serious incidents were a late rotation caused by extreme conditions of the aircraft weight and density altitude that did not permit the aircraft to achieve a significant climb rate, the climb angle and altitude to clear the obstacles and the takeoff trajectory. Also, takeoff with more aircraft weight than permitted by the performance calculations. This weight, together with the density altitude, caused the aircraft to cover a longer takeoff roll distance, consequently reducing the safety margin to avoid obstacles in the takeoff trajectory, causing the aircraft to collide with a natural obstacle immediately after the rotation. The contributing factors were overconfidence by the crew, assuming they would lose sufficient weight during taxi for departure, rendering their gross weight within the performance calculations. Low situational awareness by the crew and dispatch, with influence by the decision to continue the takeoff under limited performance conditions, and a weakness in the operational control and management by the operator dispatch by not adequately briefing the crew to take into account the atmospheric conditions. Ambient temperature, above all, would change the takeoff time and thus would affect the takeoff performance. A lack of risk management by the crew and operators and the operational safety to anticipate the conditions that would affect the aircraft's performance on a limited runway height at ambient temperatures. The investigation analysed that the aircraft weighed an estimated 109,836 pounds, including 16,866 pounds of fuel at the apron. According to the manual, the aircraft's maximum takeoff weight was 109,000 pounds, and the minimum fuel needed to Bogota was 15,970. The investigation found the weight of the 3 occupants of the aircraft was not included in the weight and balance computations. Now, Nev, I'm going to pop the video up. I have a video here. I'll pop this up on the screen so you can watch this. Here we go.
Yeah. There's some power lines there too, or telegraph. Oh, that's quite close, isn't it?
That is very... We'll pop that again. There we go.
dear, dear, dear.
I mean, that is. And just one last time, if you didn't see how close that was. Here we go. I mean, that is interesting.
I remember talking to a captain once at Heathrow when we were discussing various things to do with aviation. He said, the thing is, he said, the flying bit's pretty straightforward. The decision-making that you make on the ground with regard to, you know, takeoff weight, ambient temperature, load, weight and balance, that's what it's all about. Obviously, you've got to land at the other end. But in terms of, you know, actually getting the thing safely airborne, that is where all the decisions are made in the crew briefing room. And obviously, you'll get a load sheet from the airline as well. And then it's the captain's decision about whether he wants to take some more fuel, whether he's happy with the figures and all the rest of it. But clearly, something was a bit off whack here. And I noticed one, I'm just reading a bit later on in the story, it says, despite being overweight with both engines operating, the aircraft should have cleared the obstacle by 90 feet.
Wow.
And even if an engine had failed, the aircraft should have cleared the runway and at 35 feet AGL, and the aircraft should have cleared the obstacle by 60 feet. But during the takeoff run, it was noticed that the captain pushed the yoke forward twice without a change in attitude of the aircraft. A backward pressure became visible only at 138 knots, indicated airspeed. However, the aircraft became airborne only at 151 knots. Immediately after the aircraft became airborne and established a positive rate of climb, the number one engine's EPR was lost when the aircraft hit the tree. It's clear that upon applying back pressure, there was no positive climb response from the aircraft until additional speed had been gained. The first officer reported that he made the rotate call, but the captain did not immediately rotate, perhaps to get more speed for rotation. The CVR revealed complacency by the crew. None of the crew members questioned the takeoff weight or the ambient temperature or suggested to wait until the temperature had dropped again.
Density altitude is a thing, as Rick Bell says in the chat room.
Yeah,
I always remember one of the things that I learned very early on, because my main part of my training was in the summertime when I was learning to fly, was that in the summertime, even with a Cessna 150, which, you know, hasn't got the most powerful engine in the world, in a hot, summery, hot day, the climb, you know, performance of a 150 is pretty crap.
well, yeah, and I mean, this is it. You know, aircraft performance is massively impacted by ambient conditions, weight, and, you know, all the rest of it. But this was a step too far. No two ways about it with this aircraft. It was just horrific to see it, wasn't it? I mean, and that could have been a very different outcome as well. Let's be honest. Yeah.
Captain Cruise has got a lot of love for the 737-200, Nev.
Oh, not my favourite aircraft.
Really?
What,
there's gorgeous hush kits on.
Oh, well, the ones I flew never had hush kits on, I don't think.
Those lovely JT8Ds.
Oh. The Smoky Joes. Yeah. Wow.
I've flown on them so many times to Malta, because Air Malta had their fleet was originally 737-200s, and flew on them a number of times. Very
Actually,
good.
the last one I flew on was Britannia Airways, Luton to Belfast Aldergrove.
Oh.
So that's going back a while, isn't it?
It's going back a little while, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's not. It's all right on the inside, but on the outside, it's a bit noisy, isn't it?
So, Nev, you've got the last story, and this is one I quickly chucked in here at the end because I was watching the reports on this on Sky News this morning, and the pictures and the videos were just crazy.
This is absolutely horrific, isn't it? It's on the sky.com website. It says Fort Lauderdale Airport closed as region sees more than 2 feet of rain. South Florida has been hit with more than 2 feet of rain, causing floods and severe disruption to the region. In an unprecedented amount of rainfall for the area, according to Miami meteorologist Sean Batty, who added that the total precipitation within the 6-hour period was a 1 in 1,000 chance event in a year. The rain was at its heaviest on Wednesday in Broward County, southeast Florida, and measured up to 25 inches on some gauges. Fort Lauderdale issued a state of emergency, and its Hollywood International Airport will remain closed until Friday morning, so Friday being today, due to the scale of debris and excess water. Its City Hall is also shut, flooded and without power. Roads were swamped. As one witness said, he saw abandoned cars floating like boats in the Fort Lauderdale streets.
I saw. Yeah. I didn't get a chance. I put this story in last thing today, and I didn't get a chance to drop the pictures in, which I had, which we've got on our show notes here. But if you get a chance to see, there's a video on YouTube of I think there's a ground tug and a ground ops vehicle, and they're literally ploughing through. It's just unreal, Nev. That you can't even see the runway markings because there is literally, just tons of water everywhere.
Well, yeah, and as Rick Bell says in the chat room, it's Florida. How is this a thing? They get hurricanes every year that dump that much rain. Very good point. I've certainly been in Miami and Orlando, where the rain has just been horrific, and with the lightning that goes with it as well. In fact, it was a Virgin 747-400 I flew on into Orlando once, and we were held off at the gate because of the lightning and all the rest of it. So I think we were actually just parked on the taxiway for about 45 minutes before we could even connect up to the gate. But that's what happens at about 4 o'clock every afternoon in most parts of the county there, and most parts of the state. So, yeah, horrific. But, another newsworthy item, surely.
Yeah, Mark Priestley says this is where the sinkholes come in handy. I suppose you could do with a sinkhole. Pull the plug, let the water drip out.
Very good point, yeah.
So, commercial news, that is it for this week. And next up on the show, we have got, as always, our Caption This Just for Fun segment. It's safe to say that when we started doing this, was it last year we started doing the Caption This? It had interest in everything. Every week, Nev, we seem to get more and more interest in the picture that pops up on the screen. And it took me a while, I'm not going to lie, it did take me a little while to trawl through the internet this week to find this picture. And I found it, I thought, we haven't had a helicopter-related one on for the Caption This. I think either we haven't had or we haven't had one for a while. So, Nev, if you want to explain to our viewers what's going on with this picture, just for those of you listening in the world of audio land.
Well, it's a helicopter upside down in a city square somewhere, by the looks of things. And looks like it might be trying to clean the concrete or something like that with its rotor blades. But we had no shortage of comment and comedy, as always with these things. Shall I start off?
Go on then. So
Nick says the pilots discovered that there really was a solid ceiling.
John says Flymo launch. Flymo, it's a name I've not heard for a long while. Flymo launched their Royal Wessex coronation model for those large royal gardens.
Yes, of course, it's that time, isn't it?
Coming up. Yeah.
Nicholas says the council came under scrutiny when they introduced new plans for removing pigeons.
Sturman, obviously very, very with the details here. Sturman says, "See, I told you, white, red, then blue would look better." Very good, very good.
And John says the British were confused as to why the Australian helicopter didn't work in England.
I wonder when those ones would come out. Neville, I don't know who he is. Must be a gorgeous chap. He said, "I told you rotary ops were dangerous."
Well, I still think they are, but anyway, that's... Gordon says Westland revealed their new grass copter to the public.
Yeah, that'd be a big seller. Clive says, thought we may as well start in the way we mean to go on. Very good.
Robert says Branson's new venture, VTOL.
Very good, very good. Neil says, here we go. With the Neil says, Australian heli taxi rank.
Bill says crowds begin to gather to watch Captain Speaking start the We Sucks Whirly gig for the first time.
Chris has got, this is a good one from Chris, says, and that's how you do crop circles.
Yes.
Very good, Chris.
Elliot says, looks like Ryobi have teamed up with the local Air Force. Cut your grass, hedges and trees in one. No clean-up required. Brilliant.
And Bill says, today's helicopter flight has been grounded. Blame the pilot. It's the asphalt. So there we go. We'll get a nip to the chat room, Nev. See if let's have a look, shall we, in the chat room?
Let's have a look. What do we got there? Richard Bell, yes, helicopter face.
I like that one, Rick. Helicopter face, very good. What's that one in the UK, Nev? It was Boaty McBoatface, wasn't it? Here. We've got Main Man Micah says, when you want your eggs really fluffy.
Richard Adams says, the newly converted fixed-wing jockey that couldn't resist calling rotate. I like that.
Mark Priestley says, did an exit from it underwater safety offshore, but that is different. Yeah.
Captain Crew says, rotor manufacturer pulls excellent media stunt to prove sturdiness of their product.
Well, it's safe to say it's been a popular one this week, again, as usual. Don't forget to keep your eyes on YouTube, on Facebook. We're going to try and start to get these on Instagram as well if we can, because I know some of you guys and girls follow us on Instagram, so we're going to try and get them on Instagram as well each week as well. But for those of you who follow us on Facebook, keep your eyes on there on a Wednesday. I try and get these on there on a Wednesday. Well, it's a bit late this week. I think I was sitting watching an episode of SEAL Team on Now TV when I put this one on late on Wednesday evening. But keep your eyes on Facebook on Wednesday for the next picture next week, and leave your comments on there for them to be read out on the show. So what's coming up next, Nev?
Well, are we reading all the military this week? Is Armando doing any reading, or is it just us, do you think?
No, it's just us, Nev, but I did squash them down a little bit, so don't panic.
Expect grammatical errors and mispronunciations then.
And on
Up
that
next,
note,
it's the military.
Lost up buggies 135, 50 Angels 16, heading 340. Okay. 108 buggies.
go on, Nev. You can take the first one. I know you want to.
Thank you. It's on defencenews.com. It says the US Air Force sent F-35s to defend NATO, and here's what it learned. As Russia launched its offensive in Ukraine in February 2022, NATO's eastern flank became an ideal proving ground for the F-35 Lightning II. Officials with the 388th Fighter Wing told Air Force Times during a recent visit. Members of the active duty 388th Fighter Wing and the Air Force's Reserve 419th Fighter Wing became the first American F-35A units to arrive in support of NATO amid the opening volleys of the Russian-Ukrainian war last year. They deployed to Germany's Spangdahlem Air Base from February to May 2022. Their mission was to vacuum up as much electronic data as possible from the surface-to-air missiles and aircraft dotting Eastern Europe to build a map to guide NATO operations. And if the situation spilled into NATO countries, to add some muscle. F-35s are designed to block and destroy air defences that could down Allied aircraft, paving the way for other aircraft to enter enemy territory. They also soak up electronic emissions from nearby radars to compile a picture of friendly and unfriendly forces in the area. Airmen saw those threats in Ukraine and Kaliningrad and the Russian province wedged between Lithuania and Poland. The F-35s were able to locate and identify surface-to-air missile sites and pass that information to the rest of the coalition. We had built this fighting team to go forward, not fully knowing how many locations they would be at, they said. We probably need a little bit more personnel to be able to do distributed operations for the multiple locations. The pallet of spare parts was too bulky to easily move around the region, and that spurred the wing to make its spares packages lighter and more modular. F-35 pilots told Air Force Times that they've learned to refuel their own jets and inspect engines in a pinch as well. Agile operations have helped pilots think like crew chiefs to catch issues they may not have noticed before, said Lieutenant Colonel Jesse Proctor, who's a pilot with the 4th Fighter Squadron. Leaders have also praised the F-35's connectivity with other NATO aircraft as a huge win for the alliance. F-35 manufacturer Lockheed Martin had projected that NATO members will have stationed more than 400 of the jets across Europe by 2030. The aircraft is seen as the leader of any future flight in the region. No matter what your qualification is, wingman, flight lead or instructor, you'll have 4th generation instructor pilots and flight leads come up to you to ask you questions about threats, tactics and how we're going to integrate together, said Captain Josh Storinolo, who's a pilot also with the 4th Fighter Squadron. They all look to us for the answer.
I'll tell you what, Nev. And I know you're not a huge military fan, as we all know on the show.
I'm a big fan of it. I just don't understand it.
I don't understand, but it is a stunning aircraft, the F-35 to look at.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But we are lucky to see these quite a bit over the skies here where we live here. But along with the Typhoons, to be fair, we get the Typhoons over quite a bit as well.
And so, are they based over in East Anglia then? Those squadrons?
I don't know where the F-35s are based. The Typhoons we've obviously got at Coningsby.
Yeah.
But the F-35s, I think that would be one to ask Jonathan Warner, I think, on that note.
Yep.
Moving on, though, to the next story about an aircraft. Honestly, these things are absolutely amazing. This is all about the MiG-29s. I remember seeing one of these of Jonathan Warner at Riyadh a few years back, done in that blue, that blue paint scheme, that camouflage blue they used to do.
Yeah,
so good. Bulgaria is ready to transfer its MiG-29 fighters to the Ukraine, but only if it receives guarantees of receiving modern aircraft from Western partners. I suppose that's fair enough. Interfax Ukraine writes about this with reference to the EFE agency. According to the agency, 16 MiG-29 fighters are in service with Bulgaria. At the same time, only 6 aircraft are in working order. Let me get that right. 16 are in service, but only 6 are in working order with the Bulgarian Air Force. The situation has arisen due to the fact that the country, after joining the sanctions against Russia, can no longer receive technical assistance. Bulgaria is ready to consider the transfer of fighter jets to Ukraine, but only if it receives Western-made aircraft in return. It's noted that if the country sends fighter jets to the Ukraine just now, it will remain without combat aircraft at least until 2025, when its deliveries of previously purchased American F-16s will begin. As Ukrainian Defence earlier reported on March the 17th, the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Edward Huger, announced that the country's authorities had decided to hand over MiG-29 fighter jets to the Ukraine. And on April the 5th this year, it became known that Poland began the process of transferring its MiG-29s to the Ukraine. I'll tell you what, at this rate, Nev, they're going to have a hell of a force of aircraft, because giving all these aircraft away.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
But it's good. So, Nev,
by the way, the F-35 is based at RAF Lakenheath.
Lakenheath. That's probably
not that I knew that, but Hobby Time very kindly in the chat.
Well done, Hobby Time.
Reminded us of that. We should have known that, shouldn't we? Really.
Which, to be fair, Lakenheath is Not that far from me.
It's not. You should have known that, really.
Yeah,
it's
I
on your
should have known
doorstep.
that. It's on my doorstep, yeah. That's why it's so bloody noisy right out here on weekends. Definitely on weekends. Nev, next story for you. Another aircraft that I've got some very fond memories of from seeing these up close as a child.
When I see people talking about the A10, I expect them to talk about the road going from London to Cambridge, but this is not that kind of story. This is about the Fairchild Republic A10 Thunderbolt ground attack jets from the US Air Force, and they are looking to retire some of these. So the service said that on the 10th of April it retired the first A10C, commonly known as the Warthog, from the 74th Fighter Squadron at Moody Air Force Base after the airframe had logged 43 years of operational service. The A10 tail number 80-149 was flown to US Air Force's Aircraft Boneyard at Davis Mountain Air Force Base on the 5th of April, where it will be preserved as much as possible, whilst also providing parts to other A10s, the service said. This is the first of 21 A10s that will be retired before October, the Air Combat Command tells Flight Global. The ACC says it's prioritising the least combat effective A10 airframes for retirement. The retirements must be completed during the current fiscal year, 2023, as per the current Defence Authorisation Bill passed by Congress, which ends on the last day of September. This is bittersweet. It's an old aircraft, and there comes a time when each of them needs to be retired, says Staff Sergeant Austin Brine, dedicated crew chief with the 74th Fighter Squadron. They are still combat capable, but after all of the hours put in, their time comes, he says. When it touched down at the Boneyard, tail number 80-149 had recorded 14,125 flight hours over the course of its career. The US Air Force has gone to considerable lengths to keep the Cold War era A-10s flight-worthy in recent years. And the service contracted with Boeing in 2011 and 2019 to produce all new wing sets for its 283 aircraft A-10 fleet. Each set consists of an outer wing assembly, centre wing assembly, control surfaces and fuselage integration kits. The upgraded wings are more durable, easier to maintain and are supposed to last for 10,000 hours of flight before needing a depot inspection, the US Air Force says. Whilst new A-10 production ended in 1984, the wing sets from the Enhanced Wing Assembly Replacement Programme are meant to extend A-10 flying life into the 2030s. Well, despite that investment, US Air Force leaders have repeatedly sought to retire the A-10, which they say is too slow and unstealthy to survive against modern air defences. The service's top general argues that funds directed to maintain the US Air Force's 9 A-10 squadrons would be better spent on modernising their fleet with more fifth-generation aircraft, such as the Lockheed Martin F-35. However, that desire was repeatedly thwarted by US Congress, which required the continued operation of A-10 squadrons through the defence budget. The aircraft gained cult status amongst American ground combat troops for its low-level gun runs, whilst providing close air support during the lengthy wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. That in turn helped the famously rugged A-10 survive years of Washington budget politics. However, in late 2022, lawmakers finally approved the US Air Force to retire 21 of the turbofan-powered attack jets, starting in 2023. Designed to destroy tanks in close air support, the A-10 was built around a titanium bathtub cockpit to protect the pilot, and a General Dynamics 30mm GAU-8A Avenger cannon. It uses two Aviation TF-34-100 engines mounted prominently above the tail section of the aircraft and can carry up to 7.2 tons of mixed ordnance, according to Boeing. Tests performed by the US Air Force in 2022 determined that the A-10's main cannon is still effective against the armour of modern main battle tanks some 50 years after the aircraft was designed. The Type's pilots still believe it has a role to play on the modern battlefield, though. The A-10s remain the most effective close air support platform in the world today, even after 45 years, says US Air Force Captain Kevin Dominique, who flew tail number 80-149 to its retirement. As long as the Air Force allows the aircraft to fly and be properly maintained, this community is ready to provide that expertise anywhere in the world against any adversary. The 74th Fighter Squadron has already received a replacement airframe for its retired 80-149. That aircraft was transferred from the Indiana Air National Guard, which currently operates A-10s, but is transitioning to the Lockheed Martin F-16 strike fighter. Well, that's 43 years of service for that airframe.
It's done well.
Imagine the amount of maintenance it requires, though, to get it through its journey. It must be, I mean, that's what the Air Force do, isn't it? They are incredibly good at maintaining aircrafts.
They are a solid lump, though.
Yeah,
these aircraft, they have done really, really well. I don't think they'll outlast the B-52, but I think it'll be a few more years until they all get put out to pasture. But loads of comments in the chat room, actually, Nev, about the A-10. Micah says the A-10 is old and does need to be retired, but the Air Force needs to have a replacement ready for it, which it does not. And he has done his best to ward off searching for. And Micah makes a good point, actually. There'll always be a need for close air support aircraft that can fly low and slow and can accurately fire onto the ground and can linger longer, meaning hang around in the area. And, these were actually based, Nev, not far from me, just down about half an hour drive away from here at RAF Bentwaters, which is still, well, it's not an active base, but it's still, all the bits and pieces are still there. The runway, the buildings, the blast hangars, everything is still there. And these used to be based there back in the day. Had many a fun family day at RAF Bentwaters many years ago, and I can still remember standing right next to one of these, Nev, these A-10s on display, because back in the late 80s there wasn't such things as fences and people telling you not to touch.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, this is the whole thing about static air displays these days. Some of them you can get up close and personal to, but others not. And I think things have changed, but it's still very inspirational for youngsters to see these things, isn't it?
We never had that problem at the Dubai Air Show, did we, Nev?
No,
there was no fences. We didn't have that issue.
We just showed our press passes and off we went.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's time to give away a book. Now, as you know, Nev has got rather a extensive stash of books that have been very kindly sent to us from the publishers, straight from the publishers. And Nev's been piling the books up in his home studio there, and we decided that we need to give away some books. So each week we're going to give away a book pretty much until Nev runs out, which will probably take us up till Christmas, I expect, at this rate. But we've got a book to give away this week. We opened the competition last week on the show. We've had, I think we actually got all correct answers there. I don't think anyone got this wrong at all. But I set the question, and Nev, what was the book that we're giving away this week?
Well, here it is. It's the book's called Tornado Boys by Ian Hall. Fascinating read. I've had a bit of a read of it myself, actually, and it's really great stuff. So the question last week was, what unique blue livery was Concorde painted in back in 1996?
That's an interesting one.
Well, yes. What could it be? The answer was the Pepsi logo.
This is so bizarre.
And I think you've got a picture of it somewhere as well, haven't you?
I have. I think he says. Let me just see if I can find it.
Whilst you're looking for that, there's some fun facts about this as well, because Pepsi's Concorde would perform just 16 flights as part of a promotional tour across Europe and the Middle East, operating most flights at a non-supersonic speed of Mach 0.7. However, it did break the sound barrier for a short trip short time on most trips. These flights could be purchased by the public or were given away by Pepsi. However, there were some paint issues, and Air France were advised to remain at Mach 2.02 for no more than 20 minutes at the most, but no restrictions were placed on them below Mach 1.70. This was not a concern for Air France, as the aircraft was not due to operate any scheduled flight or any other such long sectors. So what actually happened to it? Well, it was retired to the Air and Space Museum at Le Bourget in France on the 14th of June 2003, joining 001 after flying 12,974 hours. And in 1996, as we said, this aircraft carried a promotional paint scheme, blue with its logo for Pepsi.
No, I can't find the picture, Nev. Sorry, I must have forgot to load that into the system. But if you Google it, it is a interesting look, to say the least. Because if you've seen the BA's Concorde, obviously with the BA logo, I think was it the Landor livery, Nev?
Yes,
on BA's Concorde, and you've seen obviously Air France's livery, a Pepsi blue livery on a Concorde does look quite random. I'm not going to lie. But Nev, we had some correct answers, and Nev has dug out a very special hat to pull a name out of this week.
Yeah, this was from the London Biggin Hill Airport. I can't remember whether we paid for this or not.
No, we didn't, Nev.
No, we didn't.
We got given those.
Yeah. So this is the hat we're going to use, and the people that got the correct answers are John Pickard, Stephen Taylor, Richard Adams, Bill Aronek, Arne Carlson, and Jonathan Warner. And here I have all of the answers, which I have folded up carefully and put into the hat. So let's have a ramage.
This is budget cuts here. We just have the paper.
Well, I know, yeah. It's the whole thing is done on a shoestring, isn't it? So I'm not going to look, and I'm going to have a good old
rummage. Have a rummage, Nev. Have a rummage.
Quite at random. Right, let's have a look. Here we go.
So the winner of the book this week is
Stephen Taylor.
Stephen Taylor.
There he is.
There we go.
Stephen, could you send us an email to podcast@planetalkinguk.com with your address, and I will post it as soon as you've done that.
Well done, Stephen Taylor, for winning the book this week. Now, with that giveaway, we're going to give away another book. So we've got another competition ready for you for this week. And Nev has gone into the P2K vaults to get another book out. And Nev, what book are we giving away this week?
Right, well, this book is called Phantom Boys. This is by Richard Pike. And I'll actually read a bit of the synopsis of him, actually. He became a flight cadet in 1961 at the RAF College in Cranwell, where on graduation he was awarded the Dixon Trophy and Michael Hill Memorial Prize for flying. In the early stages of his 40-year flying career, he flew the Lightning before converting onto the F4 Phantom. And on leaving the RAF, he became a civilian helicopter pilot. Again, I've had a bit of a read of this. Absolutely fascinating stories in there, beautifully researched, and some lovely illustrations as well. So it's a great one to win. So we're going to be setting another competition this week.
We certainly are.
Know what the question is, won't you?
Yes, we do. So your question for this week, Nev's been trawling along the internet to find a suitable question to go with this book for this week. So for your chance to win that book and get your answers in, as we say, by email, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Send your answers in there. Nev, what's this week's question?
The question is, which RAF base in Suffolk in the UK has a tornado as a gate guardian? Which RAF base in Suffolk in the UK has a tornado as a gate guardian?
Don't forget, no answers in the chat room, please. Otherwise, you'll be disqualified, booted out and botted out and everything. But send your answers in to us, as I said, podcast@planetalkinguk.com. That question just one last time. Which RAF base in Suffolk, in my home county here, in the UK, has a tornado as a gate guardian? There we go. It's as easy as that.
I wouldn't know the answer to that, actually.
You wouldn't know the answer?
No.
No. You wouldn't know the answer. There's nothing. It's all gone quiet in the chat room there.
Yeah, well,
it's all
I'm
gone
glad
quiet
it
in the
has.
chat room. So a bit of info for you for next week. We've got a guest joining us on the show next week. Now, as most of you will know, me, Matt, and Nev are off to the Cosford Air Show in when is it? Yeah, we're going in June, 11th of June this year, and. We got in contact with the team at Cosford, and squadron leader Colin Wilson has very kindly agreed to come on the show next week to talk about RAF Cosford and also the air show as well, and what goes into putting the air show together for the public each year. So he's going to be joining us next week. Fingers crossed, everything crossed, that Zoom works properly and everything works. He'll be joining us next week on the show. But we will be there. And just as a heads up as well, in case you've missed it, the air shows we'll be attending this year as a team will be, as we said, the 11th of June at the Cosford Air Show here in the UK. This will be our first outing there. We've not done the Cosford Air Show before, and we hope to see some of you there if you can make it. The tickets are available online for that, for the Cosford Air Show. It's actually run and put together by the Royal Air Force, Nev, isn't it? So it's actually done by the guys there.
Now, although we're looking forward to this very much, we have been warned of some occasional traffic congestion by Al and a few other people. So I think it's going to be a case of getting up early to avoid disappointment.
It is,
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely.
And another one we're going to be at this year as well in July, the 9th of July, will be the Wings and Wheels show. This is at the City of Norwich Aviation Museum on the 9th of July. We're going to be returning to the home of our 100th show. We were there on the Vulcan for our 100th show back in the day. That was a long while ago. We hope to see some of you guys and girls there as well, if you can make it, the 9th of July at the City of Norwich Aviation Museum. If you've not been there, it's a really, really good museum. There's tons of stuff there, and recently, in the last few years, they had to move site and moved the museum across from the new road that was put in a few years ago. So it's a great museum to go and visit, and that is, as I said, on the 9th of July. Nev and I are off to a certain air show in September, aren't we, Nev? The 14th.
Yes, 14th of September is the Jersey International Air Display. We had a fantastic time there last year. This year, Carlos and I are going to be based at the Radisson Blu Hotel by the waterfront there, which is very nice indeed. Mrs. Nev and I went there the other week just to make sure it was, up to standard, and it certainly was. And we are planning on probably recording some evening event as well before that. This time it might be at Government House. We've got to have a word with the organisers to see if we can do that, because last time it was in a marquee, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
But last year, of course, you remember, the weather was all over the place just before the event itself, and somehow we managed to get a clear bit of blue sky between, what was it, 12:30, 1 o'clock and 4:30, something like that. I mean, we were so fortunate with the weather, because I thought it was just going to go horribly wrong, and of course they were working out how they were going to change the programme and all the rest of it. But brilliant time, absolutely fantastic. So we're looking forward to going back there again.
September, yeah.
If anybody would like to join us, or you happen to live in the Channel Islands, then please do. It'd be great to see you.
It'd be good to see you, yeah. And also this year in September, on the 17th of September this year, we're going to be at the Battle of Britain Memorial Air Display at Duxford at Cambridge. This is also going to be our big sort of PTUK meetup as well. We're going to get together with some of you guys and girls there at Duxford as well and have a bit of a day of it there. So don't forget, if you can join us on that date, that's the 17th of September. It's going to be our summer PTUK meet up there at the air show, and we hopefully will see some of you there as well. We're going to try and meet up with a friend of the show, Neil, who's based there as well. If you remember Neil Cluffley, he was one of our speakers at our 400th, wasn't he, Nev? Back last year.
I really ought to give Neil a call. Because I've not done that yet.
Nev will be in touch with him. So hopefully we'll meet up with Neil as well, and he might be able to have a little chat with us as well to see how things going on. But we'll be there on the 17th of September. So hopefully, fingers crossed, the tickets are available for that as well. If you're a member of the Imperial War Museum as well, you can get those tickets quite cheap as well, and it's also a great day out as for all the family. But hopefully we'll get to see some of you guys there at the air show on the 17th of September. That would be absolutely fantastic. We're also planning as well, hopefully at some point, to get together for a little flying meet-up at some point this year. That's still sort of in the early planning stages, but we're going to try and do something a bit like we did a few years back at Seething, where we can all sort of get together and have a bite to eat and have some of our listeners who are lucky enough to have their own aircraft fly in, because I know that was quite popular in there. It was quite a good day.
Yeah. Great, it was very good.
Yeah. So we're going to hopefully sort that out sometime in the summertime. That would be fantastic.
Although I don't think I'll be taking Mrs. Nev with me this time, because the air was a little bit lumpy, shall we say, going from Booker airfield near where I live to Seething. And we had to get the train home because she said, I'm not getting on that bloody aircraft going home. Now, I wouldn't have minded, but I thought it would be unreasonable for me to put her on the train and then for me to go on the planes. So I'll leave her at home this time.
Oh, dear. Do you know what, Nev? It is literally, I'm just looking at my calendar here, it's literally just over a month until I jump onto an American Airlines 777 and go and see Armando.
Oh, my word. Yes.
Yeah, that has crept up really quickly, that has.
Gosh. We'll have to record lots of content whilst you're there.
I certainly will. I'm sure Armando will have the usual GoPros and stuff all on guard. So,
and will you be the first officer on his PC-12, do you think?
I might have a go at that again. That would be nice. I wouldn't say no if I get the opportunity to fly the PC-12 again. That would definitely be on the list. I think Armando's his Cub is going to be fixed and ready to fly as well, so hopefully we'll get a chance to fly in Armando's family plane as well.
Yes, that does look quite a thing, doesn't it? I'm not sure you would get me up in that somehow, but you know, perfectly airworthy machine, I'm sure, but just not for my particular taste, I don't think.
Yes, that's just over a month away. And it's going to be my first time flying with American Airlines as well, which I'm quite looking forward to. Gosh, yeah, my first time, so I can see what those guys are like with their service. But do a bit of a
777, is that?
Yeah, that'll be a 777-200. That will be from Heathrow, but not T5 though, Nev. Unfortunately, it'll be, I think it's T3 for that one. But hoping to sample the delights of American Airlines. But if anyone's got any advice for me, you know, feel free to send us an email. And on the note of emails and social medias, Nev, before we start to wrap things up, but in case anyone doesn't know, where can people find us?
Yes, if you look on the socials, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, just search for Plain Talking UK. You can WhatsApp the show, send us pictures or pithy comments to +44 757 2249 That's +44 757 2249166. You can email us at the show, which is podcast@plaintalkinguk.com, and we also use that email address for the competitions as well. So don't put anything in the chat room if you've got answers. Send us an email to podcast@plaintalkinguk.com. The website, of course, available. Lots of interesting things on there. plaintalkinguk.com, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, of course, when we go live, and just search youtube.com and search for Plain Talking UK. You can also become a Patreon as well, as many of you have done, and we're very grateful for your contributions. There's a link on our website to that as well, so that helps us with media hosting fees and new cables and things like that, because it's not a free service for us, but we like putting it on for you guys and girls, so we're happy to do it. But there are some running costs associated with it, so just have a look for that on our website.
Yeah, and on the note of the website, there's also the shop on there where you can grab yourself various items. As I said earlier on, we did take a special delivery today of some lovely fresh T-shirts from the printers, and I know I've got. I'm just trying to grab his name here because I know he's a listener of the show. Henry, who's a listener of the show. Henry over in Texas, I think it is, in the US. Henry's ordered himself a T-shirt. Your T-shirt was dropped off to me today, Henry. So if you're listening, your T-shirt will be sent off tomorrow, which will be, what's the date tomorrow? That'll be the 15th. So hopefully, Henry, by the end of next week, your T-shirts should, all being well, because it's normally around about 6 or 7 days, should be with you through your front door of your house, Henry. So your T-shirt will be on its way to you tomorrow. Don't forget, if you want to grab a T-shirt, if you've not already got a PTUK T-shirt, the links are, as Nev said, on our website, allthews.plaintalkinguk.com. Just click on shop, and you can also, don't forget, grab one of those glorious grey mugs, which Nev has yet to... You're yet to get one of those, Nev.
I've not got one, no. We've already had a answer to the question into our email address as well.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
That's very good. So that is about all we've got time for this week. Have a quick catch up with before we finish now. But don't forget, next week we have got Squadron Leader Colin Wilson coming on the show from RAF Cosford to talk about the air show and about the base and what he does there and the job he does there. So he'll be on the show, all being well, next Friday as a special guest. And I have it on good authority that Armando is going to be back on the show next week. Yay!
Oh, nice. Yeah. Excellent.
So Armando will be back next week and joining us with that special guest. But what are you up to next week, Mr. B?
Oh, lots more driving. We've got a new office opened in Brighton on the south coast. So I've been driving up and down the M23 quite a lot this week, and I should be doing the same next week. But of course, being on the south coast, the wind and rain this week was phenomenal. I got absolutely soaked, I think it was Wednesday night of this week. But I'm not complaining too much because it's a nice town. But no, I've been back there on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, and more driving around the country after that. And then looking forward to the 27th when I'm back on a plane again. It seems a long time.
It does seem a long time, actually, Nev, since you were last on a plane. Definitely.
Yeah.
You went through a stage at one point where literally every show you'd done probably minimum of 3 flights in a week.
Well, yeah, it was that period in February, wasn't it, or back end of January through to the end of February, where I was Edinburgh, Stockholm, Barcelona, Dallas, Portland, and then back home. So that was quite a stretch. I was very tired at the end of it, I have to say. So although I'm missing the flying, I'm quite glad for the rest at the moment.
Yes. Well, she'll be... I don't know what I'm doing next week, actually, Nev. I've no idea. I shall be in and around Norfolk and Suffolk here in the countryside for a bit. But the following week, I'm actually off up to... I'm going up to somewhere where you seem to spend a lot of time, Nev, up in Edinburgh.
Ah, the lovely capital of Scotland.
Yes, I shall be up there the week after next for nearly a whole week, actually. But I shall be twiddling my fingers in a hotel.
But you're not taking the A320, are you?
No, I'm I'm taking the considerably slower route there, i.e. my truck. So I shall be driving at 56 miles per hour from rural East Anglia all the way up to Scotland, which will take me probably the best part of my 10 hours of legal driving that I am able to do driving a lorry here in the UK. So,
and how many breaks have you got to take during that time?
That'll be a minimum of 2 45-minute breaks. Gosh. So it's going to be a long day travelling up there and back, but it is doable. I shall be there. So I'm trying to think of things what I can do while I'm up that way, because I had a little Google. I couldn't really find a huge amount of aviation related kind of museums in and around Edinburgh. So if anyone's listening who lives in and around Scotland or Edinburgh and has some ideas of where I can disappear to for a few days during a day when I'm not required to do the job that I do, that would be handy, because as I said, I couldn't really find anything exciting to do.
Well, there's the Museum of Flight at East Fortune, of course, but that's probably a little bit far out of the city.
I looked at that.
There's a bus, perhaps. That's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, do you know what, I did look, Nev. I looked at hiring a car. And when I saw the price for hiring a car for one day, I could probably buy a car while I'm there, insure it, tax it, and come out with change.
Yes. Yeah, car rental is gone really expensive, isn't it?
Yeah,
these
it
days.
has. It has.
I don't do it very often, but when I do, it's I always find it more expensive than you'd ever think. We're doing a bit of car rental for the Jersey trip, actually. I've managed to do that with the points and what have you, so that's helped a bit. But yeah, it's not cheap, is it, at all these days?
Mark says, what truck? It's an Iveco curtain sider rigid, which I drive, which is well appointed inside, I will say. It does have a fridge which has my chilled food in and drink, so I don't slum it, trust me. And I shall be catching up on many podcasts on my way up there, aviation podcasts. And so, well, that is about it. We're going to start to wrap the show up. Episode 452 of the show. Don't forget to tune in next Friday to join, hopefully, fingers crossed, all the team back here again. And I think I shall leave, whilst I'm pressing everything here, all these buttons, Nev, I'll leave you to tie off the show.
Yes, well, thank you very much for everybody for listening and watching us tonight. Really appreciate it. I shall be doing a quick email to Stephen Taylor to congratulate him on his win, and we'll get an address from him as well. I hope everybody has a great weekend. I'm going to have a quieter one this weekend. It was a bit hectic last weekend. Hope everybody has a great time. Thanks for joining us. See you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.